Hello there, and welcome back to Remember the Film. This is our second week in a row where we talk about Star Wars, and it's the second part of our Star Wars ranking. So last week we ranked number 11 to 7. We each gave our individual list and sort of added them together with a very basic point system to give an overall list. So I will just quickly remind you of our overall list so far. So our list is at number 11, we have Attack of the Clones. Number 10, we have The Phantom Menace. Number 9, Solo, A Star Wars Story. And number 8, we have Revenge of the Sith. And at number 7, we have The Rise of Skywalker. So I've already said my number 6, which is Revenge of the Sith. But now we're going to ask Grizz what your number 6 is. What is your number 6?
Number 6 on my list for Star Wars is The Force Awakens.
The Force Awakens. So I have it at number 5.
I have it at number 4.
Josh?
Number 4.
Okay, then we can talk about it now. Okay,
Great.
Grizz, go ahead.
So, for The Force Awakens, the reason it is where it is on my list is because I think it's absolutely fantastic.
I love it. I really love it.
I know a lot of people got mad when this movie released saying, oh, well, they're just redoing episode 4. I don't care. I personally think that there's enough different between it that it doesn't bother me, and the parts that are similar I appreciate for their great parallels. So that works well for me. Yes, Josh.
I think it actually, the similarities to episode 4, while strong, I think it actually improves The Force Awakens in my mind rather than detracts from it. Because, for me, I clocked the similarities as I was watching for the first time, but it still didn't spoil anything for me. I was never ahead of the movie despite the similarities to episode 4. It just, I don't know, it kind of grounded it for me in a different way. And this was, honestly, it was exactly what I needed. When it came out, it was so anticipated, and, I'm happy that they kind of grounded it the way they did with similarities to 4.
Coming into The Force Awakens, I went off the internet for 3 days prior to the movie's release.
Yeah.
Because I was not going to let this get spoiled. And it was, boy, am I glad that I did, because there were some big moments in this that, were definitely going to be major spoilers. And I think that's part of what makes this movie so special is that it has those big surprises. They feel earned, like what happens with Han Solo. It was a surprise, but also didn't leave you going, well, why'd they do that? It made sense.
It felt right. Yeah.
It felt right, and it was a good send-off for this character that we've seen, as we said before, as the tough guy, the kind of a little bit of a jerk, but a lovable jerk, and then he becomes this a general, a leader, and then we get to see him. We never got to see him as a father, but this is the moment that in this movie we get to see Han Solo trying to make up for his failures as a father, and it's really beautiful. And then of course I would also like to point out, as we have mentioned, John Williams' music in the whole franchise is incredible, but I honestly think that the Force Awakens score is his best work since the original trilogy. I think that the themes,
it's incredible.
The themes that he introduces for the new characters, are excellent. They're memorable in a way that the original trilogy themes were. I love it. Yes, Josh.
I think originally John Williams was only supposed to work on The Force Awakens and not on the subsequent sequel trilogy movies, but he said he didn't want anybody else writing the music for Rey. He felt such an attachment to the Rey character and put his heart and soul into Rey's theme, and that he wanted to complete her story.
And
that's
it
why
shows.
he worked on 8 and 9.
An incredible musical theme, by the way.
Yeah.
I have it at number 5. It's in my top 5, and honestly, the top 5 are movies that are, I won't say interchangeable, because I do stand by my order, but they're all movies they're all some of my favorite movies of all time. The Force Awakens was such an incredible experience for me out in the theater.
It really was. It really was.
I was 19 years old, so in terms of at least my fandom, not just of Star Wars but of movies in general, it was a really impressionable, important age for me, and getting to see Star Wars on the big screen, and honestly, I didn't, because I didn't believe there was going to be more Star Wars on the big screen. I wasn't at the time that into the internet culture of knowing the back end deals. I didn't know necessarily that Disney had bought, Star Wars in 2012. I just, oh, they're making a new Star Wars movie. I saw the trailer the first time and I was like, oh my God, they're making a new Star Wars movie and Han Solo's going to be in it. And I went to see it and it was everything that I wanted.
Absolutely.
Similarities with A New Hope, I really didn't care. It was beautiful. It was every bit as Star Warsy as I had expected it could be. And yeah, it was just a moment in time, and I absolutely love it.
I think it was a really good mix of old and new.
Yeah.
Having the Falcon there, having Han Solo and Chewie there, and
that
like a mention
garbage.
of Luke. Yeah.
What a scene! What a scene!
A mention of Luke, but Luke not actually showing up. Like the absence of Luke was really felt in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, Hugo, I think it's everything I wanted a Star Wars movie to be. In that it was fun, it was exciting, it was emotional. I think all the emotional beats work for me. I think that the new characters introduced, Rey, Finn, Poe, and Kylo, are all excellent, and they're immediately excellent. And like I immediately know exactly who each one is, which is not something I can really say about Qui-Gon and Padme and the new characters introduced in the prequels, for example.
For sure.
They just those four characters, again, Kylo, Rey, Finn, and Poe, they just arrive on the screen fully formed, and like it's hard to overstate like how crucial that is to making this movie work for me and making the sequel trilogy work for me. Is those characters just seem just immediately out the gate like I like all these people and I'm interested in all these people, but also like to the point about it being too similar to 4, I actually kind of like how much the movie is engaging with like the original trilogy, like the fact that Rey and Finn have like heard of Han Solo and heard of Luke Skywalker as like these legendary figures, and like I mean they're legendary figures to you and I also as audience members. The fact that Rey and Finn also see them like that works really well for me, and like Han Solo coming back to the Falcon after being away from it for decades works really well for me because it's kind of meta in that way, and I like meta stuff and kind of engaging with I don't know. Greasy with a finger up. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was commenting on, like we were talking about the parallels. In the original trilogy, no one's heard of the Jedi, right? I mean, like, people have, at most, they might have heard of it, but it's all myth and legend to them. And we know from the expanded universe that it's because the Empire...
Some of us know from the expanded universe. Not all of us.
The Empire removed the Jedi from history. They wiped out, so they made it so that if anyone knew anything about it, it was purely from storytelling because they hunted down every bit of evidence they could find to destroy every last remnant of the Jedi, right? So I love that in episode 7, we're hearing that now the Jedi are legends again, but everyone's heard of them and they know that this to be historical fact, and it's kind of it's not exactly a parallel, it's almost a perpendicular, but it's interesting how like in episode 4 they were nothing, in episode 7 they are everything. They're fans. People are fans of Jedi.
Yeah, I mean either way, both movies 4 and 7 like engage with like what these characters know about the Jedi and their expectations of the Jedi and that kind of stuff, and like that is a parallel or perpendicular to your point, but like I think it's important to establish what Jedi means to these characters in this world, and I think they do a good job of that. I just think this movie is really good. Like I get people's detractions from it, but like it's entertaining throughout. It's exciting. It's fun. It's funny, and
it looks incredible.
Emotional. It looks great. I think it appropriately throws some balls in the air for the sequels to address, and whether or not they address them is a different conversation. But like this movie's a standalone piece. I was so excited for it. I had such high expectations, and I was completely satisfied walking out of the theater. And I just really, really enjoy this movie. Raise you to finger up first.
I was good. Okay, well, I mean, it can't be understated how impossible a task it was to deliver on the hype that people had going into this movie, and yet for most people, they really did.
For me, it 1,000% did. This was a home run for me.
Yeah. And Hugo, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say about this film, because of course we talked about Rise of Skywalker last week, and this film was directed by JJ as well. I think where this film succeeds in terms of a standalone film, and an introduction to the story is the fact that J.J. Abrams, as a director, all his movies, I've seen them all, they have this really propulsive energy. And this film has it as well, but it also knows, in my opinion, more than Rise of Skywalker, which is why I have it higher, when to slow down, when to have a quiet moment. The quiet moments in this film are so good for me. The moment when, Rey is just sitting in the fallen AT-AT that she's living in,
that.
and she puts the helmet on and looks at the sky and sees the ship flying off, is the equivalent of Luke looking at the binary sunset. And I think there's, it's like poetry, it rhymes, is the famous George Lucas quote. But I think in this film, you can particularly feel it, and I think it works brilliantly. As we said, the new characters are the standouts for me. I think it's really surprising that they were able to establish, a considerable amount of new characters, because 4 characters are quite a lot, considering what this franchise is, that we all really care about and that have a fully formed sort of characterization. And so I don't know, the final fight at the end in the snow is one of my favorite lightsaber fights. I think it's fantastic.
I think it's great stuff.
I think it's
yeah.
stupid. I think it's so
Traitor!
stupid when people say, "Oh, how did Rey defeat Kylo Ren?" He'd been shot.
He'd been
You
shot.
can see him
Yeah, he'd
bleeding.
been shot. He was actively
come on,
bleeding
guys.
throughout this
And
fight.
also, the Force has been a Deus Ex Machina since the beginning. She has
Correct.
the Force. She can do it. Why can Luke be the only pilot that can shoot down the Death Star? Because he has the Force. Whatever.
I just
let
want
it
to
go.
say that's such a great point, Hugo. That like she has the Force. But Luke had to train for days to before even getting to the level that he was at in whatever. This goes back to people know about Jedi again. Rey knows about the Jedi. She has a concept of the Force. So when she's learning that she has the Force, she just has to recognize that, okay, this is possible. I can do this. So maybe that makes things easier for her to do them for the first time. It makes perfect sense to me. I don't know. I will never understand that gripe.
and why can she fight with a weapon? Because she's been fighting her whole life, living in a scrap planet by herself, figuring out how to litigate.
Yeah, we don't
Like,
need to litigate
it's fine.
the
Let's just
detractors
leave
of
it.
this movie. Personally, I think this is I think the characters are great. I think it's a good merge of old and new. I think this is a really well-written movie. Shout out to Michael Arndt wrote the first draft. He famously won an Oscar for Little Miss Sunshine. He's actually, fun fact, the only screenwriter whose first 2 produced movies got him an Oscar nomination for Best Original and Best Adapted Screenplays, because his first 2 movies were Little Miss Sunshine and Toy Story 3.
Amazing.
So he wrote the first draft of this. It was rewritten by J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan, who famously wrote Empire and Raiders of the Lost Ark with George Lucas. And yes, so they brought in the big guns, and I think it paid off, because I think that I don't know. Honestly, like almost everything about this movie works for me. I think that the fact they didn't quite stick the landing in this trilogy kind of like retroactively lessens my opinion of The Force Awakens a little bit, but I think this movie is great and I love it, and I'm really glad it is what it is.
Okay.
Yes. So, do we have anything else to say about The Force Awakens? Not really. Oh, Han Solo's death. Amazing scene.
Yes.
They did it. They did it so well. It was tragic. I cried in the cinema, and it was awesome. And seeing Chewie get mad at it was so good.
I felt
I love it so
much
much.
for Chewie.
Yeah. Like, the way they're able to just make Chewie a real character in this film, in the pain that he feels over Han Solo, is brilliant. But anyway, I guess it's Josh's turn to reveal his number 6.
What is my number 6? My number 6 is Rogue One, which I don't think we're talking about yet.
Not just
it's
yet.
Higher on other people's
Not
lists.
just yet, because I think Grizz has it really high, so we're going to talk about it later.
High. And we're gonna
so
Hugo and I will have it out like Josh and I did last week.
What's your 6, Hugo?
My number 6 was Revenge of the Sith, but I've already said that.
Okay.
My number 5 is The Force Awakens. We just talked about it. Grizz's number 5 we talked about last week is Rise of Skywalker. So I suppose it's Josh's turn again. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi.
We're gonna need to wait.
Okay. Do we need to wait?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're waiting again.
Okay, so
Hugo, what's your number
Return
4?
of the Jedi, I have it at number 4. Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
So I suppose we're waiting again, though. So Grizz, what's your number 4?
Your 5 or 4?
This is one of the crazier things about Star Wars is that people can have such wildly different
Yeah, rankings. That's all right.
for it.
It's
So
fun.
I'm sorry. I'm
fun.
adding things as we're going here. Hugo, did you say your number 4?
Yeah. My number 4 is Return of the Jedi.
Okay, let me go ahead and add that before I forget to type it on there.
Yep.
So my number 4 is Star Wars: A New Hope.
Wow. Okay.
It's a
Oh, well,
9.
yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It's 4.5 out of 5 stars for me.
That's fair. I have A New Hope at number 3, so I guess it's not that
I have
different.
it too.
Really.
So
So-
do we
okay.
want to
About
talk
it.
New Hope right now?
Yeah, I have
we
it
go
too.
New
Let's
Hope?
do it. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so it's my number 3, Josh's number 2, and Grizz's number 4. Right? Okay. So I suppose Grizz, you can start.
Okay, so
A New Hope,
A New Hope.
little known movie.
No, most people haven't heard of it. This should be our remember the film because it's often overlooked. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, what can I say that hasn't been said about A New Hope? It started it all. You know, it's just, it means so much to me. It's the characters are iconic all the way through. Like, not a one of the main characters leaves anything left to be desired for me. Like, people always say, "Oh, Luke's so whiny in A New Hope." Yeah, well, he's a farm boy. That's setting up his whole character arc. That he's gonna grow into this great hero. John Williams' score is incredible, and then just talking about the way the movie is made. We've talked about this briefly before. The practical way this movie was shot, partially because of the budget for this movie, sets up this whole trilogy. Like they have to take steps like using models or using puppets and things like that end up giving this movie such character that it's only been imitated ever since because it's just so beautifully done. I have a hard time putting into words how I feel about A New Hope.
It's hard for anybody to think to talk about. Well, we've mentioned this before, like in our when we talk about like remember the film ranking and stuff, like Citizen Kane, for example. It's impossible to divorce Citizen Kane from the cultural context of the movie. Like, no one just watches Citizen Kane; they watch the quote unquote greatest movie of all time when they watch Citizen Kane. That's always something that's going to be attached to that movie. It is, I think, more impossible to divorce both the personal and cultural context of Star Wars from watching A New Hope, the movie from 1977. I mean, I think this is, I don't like hyperbole or exaggeration, but this like may well be the most important movie ever made. Like, it's in the conversation.
From cultural importance, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
culturally, probably.
Biggest impact, yeah. So like, how's the movie? Who cares? Like that's kind of beside the point. Like honestly, like, it's my number 2 because it none of this would exist without it, and it's impossible to overstate how big of a deal this movie was and continues to be. That's why it's my number 2. Personally, if I'm like picking a Star Wars movie to watch, this is not like my second favorite or anything, but like trying to balance importance and personal enjoyment. That's why it's my it's got a little bit of a slow first act. In Luke's a little whiny, I get that. But
I think it's only slow because you've seen it so many times. If this is the first time you see this movie, considering how much you have to kind of chew on, because this world is particularly in 1977, is so detailed and so out there that you need a bit of time and you need to see it through the eyes of the two characters, R2-D2 and C-3PO, who are the equivalents of the two characters in the Hidden Fortress. You need to see this world through their eyes and kind of take it slow, take a bit of time to digest everything that the movie is presenting, because the movie is showing you this space opera that you've never seen. It has elements of samurai movies, war movies, Eastern philosophy, the hero's journey. It kind of reminds me of Dune, if you've read the book Dune. That like there's so many complicated, interesting things on this that you need kind of a little bit of a slower first act, in my opinion.
Sure.
I think the pacing of this is perfect overall.
Well, I mean, honestly, yeah, like George Lucas very famously leans heavily on Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces. Like, to call it like a story template would be disingenuous, but like it is kind of like the archetypical story structure that Lucas is employing here, and I think it works really well. It has very clear act breaks and very clear meeting the mentor, crossing the threshold, all these like this terminology you hear in like the archetypical story structure, like that all works really well. And I think it's interesting that he's doing that because Hugo, like you just said, he is kind of funneling all these influences into this new thing, which is like kind of like an underdiscussed part of Star Wars legacy, which is, especially now, you've heard the phrase, everything is a remix. Everyone is just like kind of taking things they know and love and kind of just reworking them and repackaging them and making them fresh in some way. Like that's basically what George Lucas was doing here. Like you said, samurai movies, Flash Gordon serials, that kind of stuff, and then funneling it into, put it through Joseph Campbell filter and out comes Star Wars. And that's what we have. Yeah. I also like, Grizz, you already mentioned John Williams. I think that it's very, very easy to take for granted how amazing this score is. Like, and maybe that might be like the number one takeaway for me. Like if I saw this movie in 1977, I think the number one takeaway would have been how good is that music and how good is this John Williams guy? Because like before Star Wars, he'd already made Jaws, and like I mean, for me, there's like one iconic music cue in Jaws. It's extremely iconic, but there's one. And there's like four incredibly iconic music cues in Star Wars that like everyone can still hum today, and like that's pretty remarkable. The Imperial March doesn't appear until Empire.
Correct.
It appears in Empire.
Okay, but even so, like the opening title crawl, the two sunset music. I mean, there's a lot, and
you still have for whenever there's a Star Destroyer, you have the bum ba ba bum, which is it's just three notes, but it's so iconic. It's brilliant.
And again, we're not really talking about the movie. We're kind of talking about the the stuff around the movie. But I think it's important to like take a step back because it's easy to take for granted John Williams' music. It's easy to take for granted just the concept of lightsabers and like how big of a deal that is and was and continues to be. And like this movie created Darth Vader.
The most iconic villain.
The most iconic, not exaggerating, one of the most iconic characters, not just in movies but in pop culture ever created. And he just steps off the Hugo has his mask, and the movie opens with him like stepping onto the ship basically, and into our hearts
and choking that guy.
And it's incredibly ambitious even with the characters, because if you think about Darth Vader, he's like this weird mix of a cyborg and like sort of a samurai design, because he has the hat that a lot of samurai have in the movies. It's like it's not that, it's not to be taken for granted that they're able to sell that instantly. And I think the voice work does a lot of it, because James Earl Jones, one of the most iconic voices of all time. But like there's so many elements to this that somehow manage to come together in something that is, as we said, possibly the most iconic movie of all time. Like I was looking it up yesterday, and it's still to this day, it's the number 2 highest grossing movie of all time, adjusted for inflation, after Gone with the Wind. But like that's remarkable considering how much time has passed. Like this was the biggest thing ever, and the fact that it worked considering how ambitious it is and how many elements it's juggling is, I don't know, it feels almost impossible that they were able to pull this off, considering they were also creating technology to make this movie while they were making it.
It almost didn't get pulled off, right? This movie was largely saved in the edit.
Famously.
George Lucas's then wife,
Marcia Lucas,
salvaged this movie more or less in the edit, and so when you think about
Did Steven Spielberg have a hand in shaping this somehow?
Well, I mean, that's another. Yeah, I mean, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, famous friends, right? He was very involved and advising how to proceed with things. But it's so crazy how close this movie came to falling apart, only to come out just absolutely beautiful. Yeah,
And out of nowhere too.
yeah.
Just an amazing, enormous hit, just unprecedented success, and just kind of out of nowhere.
So why is it my number 4? Well, because
good
there's
question.
not. I don't really have that much difference between my number 4 and my number 1. So
That's fair. Well, again, I could put this
Fair
lower because, like, in terms of like my enjoyment of the movie itself in isolation, it's a little lower. But like, you cannot talk about this movie by itself in isolation.
Right. Well, and that's exactly
impossible.
why it's my number 4. Is that I enjoy each subsequent movie better.
Yes.
I have it at number 3, and I think in terms of enjoyment, I have it at number 3 because I would probably put it in number 2 just because of how important this is, but I still enjoy it more than the ones that come before on my list. Like this, for me, it is also really enjoyable to watch to this day, every time. However you feel about the special edition, kind of messes with the pacing a little bit with that Jabba scene and whatever, but it's kind of not that big a deal. I kind of skip that scene when I watch the movie because I feel like the pacing of the original Star Wars as it was created is absolutely perfect.
It's funny you say that.
I don't think I've ever seen a not special edition. I think I've only ever seen the special editions of this movie.
I have seen the not special edition.
I have as well. Yeah.
Means
the Jabba scene. It's funny that you mentioned that one as one that you would skip. I actually kind of love that scene because Han Solo repeats lines that he said to Greedo, and like externally, I know that's like they cut the scene. Originally,
and they put Greedo in,
and they put so like I know that happened, but it actually fits Han Solo's character really well. These lines are rehearsed, for him. Like even I get bored sometimes.
That's how he deals with his creditors.
He's rehearsed this. He knows how he's going to get out of this stuff. I kind of love the Jabba scene just for that alone. But I mean, as far as talking about like the special editions and all the constant re-edits that have been done, is it all necessary? Probably not.
McClunky.
McClunky is really funny to me, but
it really is.
I honestly, at this point, those edits are part of the charm for me.
And also, I think it's overlooked how much they improve the movies because like some of the special effects work that they add to the lightsabers and to some of the blasts do make the movies feel
but they're not as obvious
modern,
as some of the
watchable.
other things that they added.
It's stuff that you take for granted, and when you go back to see the original cut you realize oh my god, the right lightsabers, you can barely see the colors. But
Fantastic.
Just something to mention because people like to talk about it. Either way, this movie, I think, in my opinion, is perfect, is one of the most iconic movies of all time. It's incredible that it has the staying power to have created something from nothing. And it's created the biggest movie saga of all time from literally nothing. And, endlessly impressed by the existence of this film.
Craig Mazin, who wrote Chernobyl, that's how most people know him. He has a podcast that I'm a big fan of. And on that podcast several years ago, he said, if Star Wars was created long enough ago, it would now be a religion. That's how big of a deal this movie is, and the world it created.
You're acting like it's not, Josh.
I mean, honestly, it's like the closest thing we have to a modern religion, to be perfectly honest. But that's impossible to overstate how big of a deal this movie was and is.
Okay. What do we got next, Hugo?
So, we've talked about it. So it was we've all revealed our number 4. And I've said my number 3 is Star Wars, or A New Hope, if you will, whatever you want to call it. So, Grizz, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is The Empire Strikes Back.
Whoa, okay. Okay, so I think we're at a bit of a standstill because we are revealing movies that aren't in the same order. I think Empire, we should...
you want to wait?
I think if anything is our number 1, we should wait.
I agree.
Let's wait.
Yeah, it's my number 1 as well.
I'm completely fine with that.
So I think, So what's your number 3, Josh?
Well,
I think it's Rogue One's turn at this point.
Where's Return of the Jedi?
For me?
Rogue One, yeah.
Return of the Jedi for me is number 4, and for Grizz is number 1 by
It's my
exclusion.
number 1.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's time to talk about Rogue One, which was my number 6.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's my number 9. So
let me go ahead and put
it's
that on
time.
because that is
Long
my
due for
number
Rogue One.
2.
shall I start since I'm the lowest?
Yeah,
here.
I think
Do
that's
it.
fine. Oops, hang on.
Okay, so I have Rogue One at number 9, and I know this is I think it's my only like big actual hot take.
That's a hot take
on Star Wars.
For sure.
I just, to be honest, this movie, even when it came out, I thought the third act was great, and I still think the third act was great. Whenever I rewatch it, except for this week because I wanted to rewatch it fully for the podcast. Whenever I actually rewatch it by myself, I only watch the third act. And this week I rewatched the whole movie, and it confirmed the way I feel that, the first 2/3 of this movie, I honestly don't really care about what's happening. I think there's too many characters. I don't think every movie has to be Seven Samurai. I think there's too many characters. I think they have arcs that just happen for no real strong narrative reason. Or even if there is a reason, the reason is kind of just happens all of a sudden, and they go from, oh, I don't care, to I'm the most invested rebel of all time and I will sacrifice my life for the rebellion. That's Jin, but I feel the same about most of the characters. I think the premise of the film is interesting, but again, it's backstory to I feel the same way as I felt about Solo. It's backstory about something that is cool, but I don't need to know this. And I feel like you could have told this story as a 45-minute short with the battle at the end, and I would have enjoyed it more. Like the whole first 2/3, I just kind of, my eyes kind of glaze over. There's a lot of callbacks that I feel like are a little, pandering. Like the fact that you see the guy from the Tatooine cantina there, it's fine. Oh, you see that guy, you remember that guy? That's how I feel about a lot of the stuff in the movie. The Darth Vader scene at the end is brilliant in a vacuum. Like by itself as a 5-minute short, it's an incredibly amazing scene. In this movie, did I need it? I don't necessarily think so.
I have mixed feelings about that, yeah.
I also think it kind of doesn't really match up with A New Hope all that well, because he's like, he just saw the ship. He was a meter away from the ship. They just got away, and then he goes onto the ship, and Leia's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like he was there 2 minutes ago, Yeah. And that iconic beginning of Star Wars, it just does. I don't think it matches up well with this final scene. The CGI character models,
Peter Cushing, and
you can do it. I think Peter Cushing, you can do it. But you can't do like the amount of scenes that he has with close-ups.
He's like
that
an
are
important
really
character
well
in
lit.
this movie. Yeah.
It's like it doesn't look good. I mean, it looks good, but it doesn't look good enough to grant him being a major character in the movie. And I also think, why do you have to show Leia's face? Show her from behind. The hair is iconic. The dress is iconic. If she says hope from behind, everybody know it's Leia. But you show this really well-lit close-up of the CGI character, and it's really obvious that it's not her. It's a weird choice. It kind of, I don't know, it felt weird. It felt like they were putting a really high-end video game character into a movie that I didn't need. And yeah, so those are my feelings. I think it's a great movie in a vacuum, but I don't love how it fits into the rest of the story, and I think the characters are forgettable.
I'll have a lot to say about it overall, but I just wanted to touch on the CGI characters. Tarkin, I think, I love him being an important character in this movie because he would have been. There's no way you could tell this story
without Tarkin. It makes narrative sense.
Without Tarkin, you have to have him. But they probably should have just done no close-ups,
somebody,
or either cast someone or no close-ups.
Yeah,
because the CGI character is good enough when you're far enough away, and depending on the lighting, it totally works. But doing the close-ups, they probably didn't need to do that for Tarkin. I think the Tarkin and Leia CGI characters, part of the reason that it doesn't work as well for most people is because we know so well what they are supposed to look like. So
exactly.
And particularly with Leia, we know because we've seen her since. We know that Carrie Fisher doesn't look like that anymore. So we know that this can't possibly be Carrie Fisher. So it makes what is probably a very, very excellent CGI face look less realistic to us because we internally we know that it cannot possibly be.
I don't know. I think the CGI looks pretty good.
I do too. I think it looks pretty
cases.
good, but I think for the people who are like hung up on it, I think it's just that you can't get past the mental block of knowing that that's not possible.
Also, like the Leia thing is what, 5 seconds of screen time?
Yeah,
it is. But
it's the last image. I get that.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think
And
it's
I understand your
trying
point
to
that
make an iconic moment.
Yes.
And
But
it would have if you just showed her from behind, in my opinion.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
it
yeah.
kind of ruins the moment. And I think there's
You
tiny
could
little
have,
things
yeah.
throughout the whole movie that do that a little bit for me.
So I agree with a lot of what you said, Hugo. So I saw this in theaters and then didn't see it again until this week. When I saw it in theaters, I thought it was very good, particularly the final half hour or so, like you said. But I agreed that I thought the characters were a little underwritten. And I was writing for this website at the time. I wrote a review, and I revisited my review that I wrote at the time. And I wrote that it was appropriately adequate, but it was neither a dud nor a home run. And when I rewatched it this week, I kind of think it's a home run. I think it's actually really, really good. I like it a lot more this time than I did when I was walking out of the theater. And yes, I stand by that. I initially thought the characters were underwritten, but I was listening to a different podcast discuss this movie, and they pointed out that it's a war movie, and in a lot of war movies, the mission is the focus more than the characters. Like if you think about 1917 or Dunkirk, the mission is the focus more so than the arcs.
100%.
Like there are kind of arcs, but only in relation to the mission they're on. And I think that's the case here. And on rewatch, I actually do like the characters. I think that Felicity Jones, her character seems a little sanded down around the edges, and apparently that was part of this movie was reworked in the edit, and there were reshoots, and apparently she was a little bit of a sharper character in initial drafts and initial versions, and they kind of after test screenings kind of rough, sanded down her edges a bit, which I don't know, maybe I would have liked it better if she was more fully formed, but overall I think I love Diego Luna, I love Riz Ahmed, I think Felicity Jones is good, I love Mads Mikkelsen, Ben Mendelsohn is great in this, and his character is very interesting.
Yes,
he is.
And I think it's the best looking Star Wars movie by a good margin. This was shot by Greg Fraser.
You mean overall, or just for the Disney Star Wars?
I mean, the cinematography in this, there's some stunning images that I think would.
Okay, I
maybe
agree.
make
I
it
just wanted to make sure that I was
among the best.
understanding what you were saying.
In my opinion, the best looking is The Last Jedi, but I will take this as a close second.
I also think The Last Jedi is visually stunning as well.
Yeah.
But this Rogue One was shot by Greg Fraser, who also shot Zero Dark 30, Foxcatcher, a few episodes of The Mandalorian, and he's currently he already shot Dune. So this year we will see Dune, which is shot by Greg Fraser. I'm not particularly bothered by the Peter Cushing stuff. I think that it's on the right side of the Uncanny Valley. Still kind of in the Uncanny Valley, but climbing out, I guess. And yeah, I mean, again, this week I rewatched it and I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it when I saw it in theaters, but I kind of loved it this week. And I think this movie's really good.
So,
Grizz?
the reason this is my number 2 is because it does two things that stand out to me most of all. One is that I think it captures the magic of Star Wars combat in a way that none of the other Disney movies have. The space battle is it more resembles the sort of space battles you got in the original trilogy.
Yes.
I think it captures that magic in a way that none of the other ones do. The other thing it does is that it does what I wanted from these side story movies, in that it is telling a different kind of story. This is a war movie. The other movies aren't that. They're all much more character focused, and so that does mean that these characters are maybe less defined than you would get from some other movies, but that also works out okay because you know that these characters aren't going to be around in the later movies, right? So that works for me. It also pays homage to the same sort of movies that Star Wars was inspired by, like Hidden Fortress, things like that. I think that Chirrut
Seven Samurai
Imwe
specifically for this
is the most samurai character in Star Wars.
Is that Donnie Yen?
Yeah, Donnie Yen is the actor. Yeah, and he also, while not being a Jedi, is the most dogmatic. He matches the dogma of the prequels, which makes sense as we are feeding into the original trilogy here. So I just think that it blends so well for me from prequel to the original trilogy. Even if like you said, like Darth Vader saw this Corellian Corvette take off. How does he not know it? Well, I mean, it got away. It jumped, so he has to reconfirm that this is the correct ship. I get that. That's a little hand wavy, but it doesn't bother me. But I just think that each of these characters is unique. It's sort of like they have their own role within each thing. You have Cassian Andor, who is the rogue and is a really cool character in that he shows that there's some dark side to the rebellion. Not everything they do is above board, and you get that through Cassian Andor. K2SO, my favorite droid. He's my favorite droid. He's so funny. Alan Tudyk is brilliant. I absolutely love that character. Jen Erso is, I think, is a cool character in that she is shown. She's shown as she grew up with this rebellion around her. She was raised by Saw Gerrera, so her rebellion is not being part of the rebellion,
right?
Because that's what everyone wanted her to do. And then through the course of the movie, we get a nice little arc where I think that she does realize that this is bigger than any one person, and that's what drives her to make that sacrifice. Because everyone around her has made sacrifices for this, and she finally gets it,
including her father, which she didn't know about. Yeah,
she didn't know, and I just think that all those characters are really cool, and then on top of that, you get the best space battle, and you also get the best hand-to-hand combat, like through Donnie Yen. Like that's not a lightsaber duel. I mean,
but it's not a lightsaber duel.
Donnie Yen's movements are more like he's the closest thing to a real life Jedi that I think we can get.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
I absolutely love it, and I just wanted to show off. Not many people have Rogue One T-shirts, but there it is.
Nice.
To me, I guess I'm also a little like, I don't hate this movie. I like it. I see how it can be somebody's favorite. I think it depends to some extent what you like about Star Wars. Because for me, what I really enjoy about Star Wars are the characters, and it's specifically the Jedi. What I really like about Star Wars is exploring kind of this conflict between whether the dogma is good or the dogma is bad. How do we have to follow the rules? Are the rules that essential? What does it really mean to be a Jedi? What does it really mean to be a good guy versus a bad guy? And also the mysticism of the Force. So any time there's a cave scene from Empire, that's my favorite scene in the movie. I really love those surreal kind of Force mysticism scenes. So, and this movie is a war movie, which I think as a war movie is really good. It's just kind of not what I'm necessarily looking for into a Star Wars movie. So that's the reason why it's low on my list, but I'm not saying the movie is bad by any means.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
I also want to say that I mentioned that I was less high on the movie when I initially saw it compared to now. And I think part of that is because this came out between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi in 2016. And it was the first standalone Star Wars movie. And at the time, it seemed that was going to be the norm moving forward. This was the second Star Wars movie in 2 years. And at the time, we thought we were getting a new Star Wars movie per year for the foreseeable future. So, I think I was more critical of it for that reason. Just, in the context of, I kind of saw the Star Wars fatigue ahead of me when I saw this. And I wasn't... that's not necessarily fair to Rogue One, I think. And, to your point, Hugo, you don't like that this is, retconning a small detail from A New Hope and explaining a small detail away in A New Hope to an extent. I think that kind of works. I think it's cool that it does that. It's kind of tightening up.
It's not necessarily that I don't like it. It's just I don't think it feels essential, like an essential story that if it hadn't been told, we would have missed something. Yeah, that's what
and that's certainly how I felt in 2016. I'm okay, great. So the rest of my life is going to be watching Star Wars minutia play out in 2 hour long stories. That's kind of what this movie is. That's the cynical way to look at it. But now that they've kind of stepped off the gas pedal a little bit in making these movies and kind of pivoted to The Mandalorian, and they're kind of rethinking, I think, their release strategy for the movies moving forward. I can kind of assess this movie on its own terms as opposed to its place in the business plan of Lucasfilm and assessing the movie on its own terms. I think it's honestly great. I think it's really, really good. And it's my number 6. I would have it higher if I have a soft spot for the Skywalker saga. So if the movies that are in that saga are going to be more special to me as opposed to this movie that I've only seen twice. But like, it's really good. Take it on its own terms. It's like a really good movie, I think.
That's my number 2.
Sweet.
That's your number 2. So since I guess it's time to enter the discourse, guys. Because my number 2 is The Last Jedi, and it's Josh's number 3, and it's Chris's number 7.
Again,
so
reminding everyone,
it's time.
The difference between my number 7 and my number 1 is not a big difference.
Yeah. On The Last Jedi, I think I'm the one who has it the highest, and in the spirit of being positive on The Last Jedi, which we all are, as you said, I think I can start since I'm the highest on it, if that's okay.
I'm fine with that.
To me, this was my favorite Star Wars theater experience. I watched this movie because in Italy, some of these blockbusters kind of come out a few days earlier than in the US. So I watched it on a Wednesday, and it comes out, well, either midnight on Thursday or Friday night or Friday in the US, right? So I saw this movie. Me and my girlfriend skipped class to go see a matinee showing on the Wednesday of this film, and I instantly was completely in love. I felt validated as a Star Wars fan because the film was saying a lot of things that I had been saying about Star Wars. It was looking at Star Wars from a point of view that I had been looking at Star Wars already. So I got out of the theater and I was like, oh my God, this movie is going to be, everybody's going to love it. It's going to be amazing. It's like, wow, this trilogy is so good. And then 2 days later, the discourse started happening. And yeah, I kind of disengaged from Star Wars discourse for a year because I was so surprised that people didn't like this. Well, I wasn't surprised that they didn't like it, but I was surprised that they hated it that much. But regardless of that, what do I love about it is, well, I think, first of all, the highest, I think the most incredible achievement of this film is that it kind of deconstructs what Star Wars is. It kind of pulls it all apart and says, it kind of examines it all. It tells you
it's an honest assessment.
Why it's kind of simplistic in some ways, why it could need more, why some nuance could be added to it, and it does. It adds nuance to the concepts of black and white in Star Wars. And then at the end, though, it does, like, I think some people didn't watch the ending of this movie because I think it takes it apart, it analyzes it, it tells you, let's add nuance. But at the end, it reaffirms exactly what Star Wars has always been. Mm-hmm. The fact that final Luke scene where Luke says, I will not be the last Jedi, is him acknowledging that he was wrong to leave and to be on the island, that he was wrong about the Jedi having to end, or in other words, about Star Wars having to end. And there's this meta-narrative thing of, we can continue this, we can make it more complex than it has been, but it doesn't mean that it's not the same anymore. It is still the same. I am still the Jedi. Rey is still going to be a Jedi. She's just not going to make the same mistakes that we made. So I think that's poetic. I think it's a beautiful message that it's trying to say in very different ways. And I think the movie has several interesting themes that I don't think Star Wars movies have been willing to explore before, such as being a nobody, or what does the what does the 1% look in a Star Wars movie, or what about war profiteering, because that probably happens.
What's the economy of Star Wars, of the Star Wars
what's
world?
What's the economy like? That to me is like a heady way of thinking about Star Wars. When are they going to put some
trade embargoes on Canto Bight? Let's get a blockade out there and discuss this in the Senate.
Yeah, I think we should. And all that stuff is so interesting to me. And on top of that, it's, I think, just narratively in terms of I think this is the best Star Wars script. I think all of the characters have a recognizable arc with a beginning and a middle part and an end. All of the side characters serve a purpose. They are needed for the main characters to have an arc. The scene transitions are absolutely amazing. The editing of this movie, that is 2.5 hours long, is mind-blowing to me, the way it works together. The cinematography, in my opinion, is the best cinematography a Star Wars movie has ever had. And the performance, like Mark Hamill, to me, this is the best Luke Skywalker has ever been on screen. And I think it's his best performance as Luke Skywalker. And Luke is my favorite character. Luke was my favorite character for 20 years. And I wasn't offended by this movie. I thought, this is amazing. This is exactly what would happen to Luke. This is my Luke. I don't know what people didn't see in it or hated about it. I'm not, saying they were wrong. I'm just saying this is what it meant to me. And also, the Yoda scene is my favorite scene in Star Wars. There you go.
Josh.
I think that the Luke stuff, first of all, I agree that, I think this is a very, very sensible place for Luke to be as a character. And I also think it's Mark Hamill's best performance as Luke Skywalker in any of these movies. But I think that is, if I had to pinpoint one source of the ire that people had against this movie, it's the treatment of Luke Skywalker is probably the number one. And I guess that anyone who has a problem with it, I would say, what were you expecting, really? What can these movies do with Luke Skywalker that's interesting, if not this?
I think that's the crux of it. Is what can you do that's interesting? Because what people wanted was more of the same, I guess.
What does Luke say to Rey? He says, "What did you expect? That I would go take on the First Order with a laser sword?" Half the audience apparently went, "Yeah, Luke, I kind of did think that's what you were going to do," and that's what I wanted. But the thing is, I don't think you actually wanted that. If you think you did.
It's not just that you didn't want it. It's that Luke was never that. In Return of the Jedi, he's an action star, but it's not like he's this superhero that can do everything by himself. And at the end, he doesn't even win he does win the fight against Darth Vader, but he doesn't even defeat the big bad. He decides not to fight. That's how he wins.
He needs to get bailed out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he's not defeating what he hates, but saving what he loves. That's literally what he does in Return of the Jedi.
Yes. And his actions at the end of The Last Jedi reflect his actions at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Which I think is nice. And I think the execution of Luke's character is great. And Luke's character arc is great. Luke has an arc in this. And it's very satisfying to me. And people, I think, were hurt seeing their childhood hero who they've idolized for decades behave in a way that they didn't agree with, but that's kind of the point. You're kind of supposed to be disappointed by Luke's attitude and his crustiness and the fact that he's given up. You're not supposed to like that. And he makes up for that. He has an arc and changes and no longer feels that way at the end of the movie. And, that's, I think, really great stuff. And the end point of Luke Skywalker's character, I think, is incredible and some of the most well-written character stuff in Star Wars. Grace, you have a finger up.
I think people got angry. The people who are angry about The Last Jedi. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I think they got angry the moment he tossed the lightsaber, right?
Yes.
They're angry. They're like, that's not what Luke would do. And then now they're spending the next big chunk of the movie wondering why Luke is a crusty old man. That's not right. But the fact of the matter is that we don't know why he's this way yet. We don't find out until it's revealed, what actually happened between him and Ben Solo. And that's when you can see it, and that's what makes that's what makes this story so interesting to me, at least the Luke Skywalker portion, is because it shows that your heroes are capable of mistake.
They're flawed,
and
and they're human. And even though they have the Force, they're people.
It's not like this was Luke's first mistake he ever made. He went and confronted Vader too soon, even though they told him you're not ready. Yes. He went and did it anyways. So it's not like Luke has always been infallible. So I don't know why they thought that was such a out of character moment. Yeah, Josh.
Well, I think another thing people took issue with is the idea that Luke would ever even consider killing young Ben Solo. And they're like, well, Luke would never do that. Well, I don't know. Luke saw the future and had a moment of weakness. And he acknowledges it as a moment of weakness. And he acknowledges it as, one of the worst things he's ever done is even considering that. So, cut him some slack.
Yeah, but he didn't do it, and that's the point.
Exactly, he did not do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Hugo.
And also, it's the story. The end of Return of the Jedi sees Luke, who's this kid compared to the Jedi Masters past. He's not like the most knowledgeable, wisest Jedi of all time. He's just one of the Jedi. He has no one left. He has to rebuild this giant legacy on his own. Of course he's going to make a mistake. Of course he's at some point, something's going to happen and he's going to say, oh my God, I spent my whole life building this and I predict that it's going to be destroyed. He's going to have a moment of weakness. Why not?
Also,
he's fallible.
the movie acknowledges that as a point of failure on Luke's part. The movie is not on his side in that moment. In fact, they make a huge point. That's why he's out there in the first place in that self-imposed exile, is because he hates himself for doing that. And the emotional climax for Luke's arc is Yoda telling him it's, okay that you failed there. You don't have to punish yourself like this. We all fail. And failure, greatest teacher failure is, whatever, blah, 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 blah.
And he says the legacy of the Jedi is failure, but by the end he says the legacy, but now the Jedi can learn from that failure and continue.
Yes.
So he learns from Yoda again and grows again.
I mean, I mentioned it last week, and I do like how The Last Jedi kind of does reckon with the prequels and how, like, the Jedi kind of suck in the prequels and how they really drop the ball enormously, both with Anakin and Palpatine and really everything that happens in the arc of the prequels. The Jedi really drop the ball. They drop they blow a 28-3 lead. And that's an American football reference.
That's an American football reference.
Yeah.
I was like, what? They do what?
They blow a 28-3 lead.
They do the Warriors in the finals in 2016. Carry on.
They blow a 3-1 lead. There you go. Yeah, there you go. And, like, The Last Jedi acknowledges that and, like, reckons with that. And, like, that's part of Luke's arc, is reckoning with that. And Yoda teaching him that, it's okay that we have failed and we'll continue to fail. We grow from it, That's what masters are. We are what they grow beyond.
Which is such
something
a great
you mentioned
line.
earlier. It really, really is a great line. I can see why that's your favorite scene in Star Wars, Hugo.
Yeah.
I think it's a great scene.
I love that stuff.
I agree with you. I think this is, like, the best written Star Wars movie. Which is why it's crazy to me that, like, the detractors of this movie insist it's objectively bad writing, and it's completely not. Like, in all the ways you can measure objectivity in writing, it's, like, objectively a really, really well written movie, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm crazy, but like, the arcs are clear. All three of the main characters have clear arcs. Kylo Ren has a clear arc. He kind of like. Kylo Ren kind of, like, goes halfway and then turns around. That's, like, his arc is, like, kind of moving up to the precipice of something and then going back to the direction they came.
That's what he does throughout the movies. So,
the execution of the midpoint climax in this movie, like, all three characters, Finn, Rey, Poe, hit their climaxes, their stories of their climaxes simultaneously with Holdo's maneuver. And the midpoint climax, just the throne room sequence, the entire throne room sequence, from Rey turning herself in, much like Luke does at the end of Return of the Jedi, and trying to turn Kylo, much like Luke does at the end of Return of the Jedi. It's rhyming, it's poetry. The entire throne room sequence, from her turning herself in to them being blown apart, is, I think, my favorite sequence in all of Star Wars. In some of the best shots, some of the best surprises, some of the best, like, the conversation Kylo has trying to turn Rey as she's trying to turn him. That's all really good stuff. And I think it's good character stuff, it's good thematic stuff, and it's good dialogue. It's the cinematography, the shot of the lightsaber flying towards Kylo and Rey's hand goes up to grab it might be my single favorite shot.
And
in
it's
all
all
of Star
practical
Wars.
as well.
And it's all practical. And
It's incredible.
just I love this movie. I think it's great, and it's my number 3. It could very well be my number 1. I don't really know. I think it's great. Sorry, Grace, I've been rambling. You got your finger.
No, I just wanted to kind of explain why it's my number 7. Like, as I said, the difference between my number 7 and my number 1 is not large. So there's not a whole lot that I have wrong with it. But if I had to point to the things that are less good, because I don't want to say they're bad, they're just not as good for me. Canto Bight, I just found that whole sequence. I didn't find it particularly interesting. Certainly in comparison to what the other two main characters are going through, with Rey's story and what Poe is going through back on the ship. I just didn't think Canto Bight was as impactful. So I have,
relatively speaking, I agree. Yeah.
So that's one issue I have with it. the other issue I have, and maybe this is more a frustration with what actually happens in the movie than a frustration with the movie, but it seems like the vast majority of the problems in this movie could be resolved by talking to each other at all.
Particularly Poe.
Yes,
Yeah.
every problem that Poe has could be resolved by just talking, and and at some points
Yes.
it's that he should talk to them, and in other points it's that the other person should talk to him. Point is, communication would have solved a lot of problems, and so that's where I have a slight hang up is why didn't Holdo tell them we're going to keep going, we're going to keep sacrificing ships, we're going to gas up, and then we're going to head to here. Why did that have to be a secret?
Well, he's demonstrated that he can't be trusted with that.
Okay,
kind of
but
stuff,
so why not tell literally everyone else on the ship?
I think there's- I think there's two reasons. First of all, reason one, maybe Holdo is wrong for not doing that. Haven't you ever had a bad boss?
Oh no, 100%. And that's
Character
what
can
I'm
be
saying. It
wrong.
may be a frustration with, it's not a frustration.
You know
that
what I mean?
It's a frustration that the movie meant for me to get, right?
Yeah.
So I don't.
But,
That's why I don't really hold it against it, but it does make it less enjoyable for me by just that much. You know what I mean?
Okay, so that's my first thing is maybe she is wrong for not saying anything, but that's her decision. She's a military leader. Military leaders are often not taking the best decision in the heat of the moment. It can happen. But aside from that,
character
it's like,
decisions are
why
not
would
the
she...
same as logic flaws. Yeah.
What? Sorry.
What, Josh?
Character decisions that are not the decisions you would make does not mean it's a plot hole or a logic.
Exactly.
hole.
Oh, yeah,
People
yeah.
constantly make that complaint that a character making the wrong decision is a plot hole. No, it's not. It's a character making a decision.
It can be if the plot hole, if the decision is so outrageous that no one could ever have made that decision. But this isn't the case here.
Right.
Like Hugo says, people have had bad bosses who don't communicate.
Yeah.
That's a very common.
Go ahead. I interrupted you. Go ahead. What was the second reason
And also,
why Holdo shouldn't have told Poe?
The second reason is for me because I understand that there's a group of people she's not trusting with this information, but maybe she's trusting the commanders. We don't know. Poe's been demoted.
Leia's in on it.
Leia's in on it as soon as she wakes up, and
when she wakes up.
Poe's been demoted. We don't know if the other commanders who haven't been demoted have been trusted with the information. There's people on her side who get arrested. When Poe does the mutiny, there's other people that are on her side. Those people probably know what the plan is, but it was decided that the best course of action for the information not to leak was to not let everybody know or let anybody in on the plan. It's like, I get how it can be frustrating as an omniscient viewer of the film, but I don't see it as a flaw in the script writing. And also, to be fair, I'm also inclined to love Holdo because Laura Dern is amazing, and she has purple hair and she looks incredible, and I think she's an awesome character. Also, the Holdo maneuver scene is people are like, "Oh, this breaks the law." Shut up! It looks incredible. It's one of the coolest
it does look incredible
scene things that have been done in Star Wars ever. It doesn't matter if it hasn't been done before. It doesn't matter. Who cares? It looks amazing.
That may have been that may have been the number one theater moment of seeing a Star Wars movie in theaters. Was that moment in theaters was unparalleled for me.
Yeah, I think people complain after they saw the movie, but at least my experience was I saw this movie in theaters 3 times. Each of the 3 times at that scene, people were just
gasps.
Yeah, I don't think anyone, when they complain about that scene, I don't think anyone's complaint is with how it looked or how it sounded, because again, the sound in that is really good. My brother is a huge Star Wars fan as well. He didn't love the Holdo maneuver because why isn't that a thing that more people do all the time? And they hand wave it in Rise of Skywalker. They say that shot was 1 in a million.
You don't have to acknowledge it. It's fine.
Right.
Well, here's a question.
I was going to say
here's a dark question. Why haven't more people flown planes into buildings?
Okay.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
That's it.
But my brother's point was, okay, you're the last X-wing. Your entire squadron's gone down. You're not going to make it out of this battle. Launch yourself into the bridge. Why Why isn't that
Well,
a thing? And I think it's just that
how do we know hasn't
I think
happened?
the only reason it works for the Holdo maneuver is one, because the ship she is flying is so big, and two, the first ship it hits is even bigger. So, so it's that it would be very hard.
Conservation of momentum. Yes.
It would be hard to line up a shot when you're launching into light speed to hit a smaller size ship. The only reason the other ships get torn up as well is because of shrapnel from the first impact spreading through the rest of it. At least that's my view on it.
It's like, but all I'm saying is, I get that. I just don't think Star Wars is the franchise to get hung up on mechanics, because it's there are no rules.
Yes,
like my brother is also an aerospace engineer by degree, like Josh.
As am I.
I'm
fine with it.
I mean, it's not like he goes to bed and texts me every night to say, "Man, I really hated that Holdo maneuver."
No, I know. I'm not talking about your brother, but I'm talking about people who are like, "Oh, there's no gravity in space." It's like, they have artificial gravity. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It looks cool. Like, there are no rules in Star Wars. Luke Force projects him. We've never seen it before. Yeah. Well, you haven't seen Force Ghosts before Empire, but you accept that. What's the difference?
And there's a lot of pedantic nitpicks like that for this movie that I'm like, have you ever seen a Star Wars movie before? And I don't know why you're taking issue with this. Go ahead.
I will say that the first time I watched this movie, I came out of the theater and one of my friends, Catherine, she loved it. And she was just so excited about it. And she asked me what I thought about it, and I wasn't sure. And the reason for that was I had not yet made up my mind whether or not I was satisfied with the new force powers that they like. And so after I thought about it, I was like, you know what? It's a logical progression. From things that we've seen previous Jedis and Sith do. I can make the leap to that point where I can be like, yeah, you could project your consciousness, your being, whatever it is, through space-time, through the Force. The Force is a network of energy, right? So, I was able to justify it in my head, and that's what made me ultimately be like, yeah, you know what? It makes sense. This is cool.
But also, the Force is magic, so there are no rules on what it can or can't do.
But no, Hugo, it's microorganisms that live in your body.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's still magic.
It's not that.
In narratively, it's magic. It doesn't matter. Like, the way it's used in all of the movies it's magic. So Yoda says, "Judge me by my size, do you?" So it doesn't matter whether the thing that you're lifting is big or it's small, because it's magic. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And this movie's amazing. We haven't even talked about Daisy Ridley and Kylo Ren. Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver and the Force Connection stuff that was shot with them being in the room. So they did the scene twice in the different settings, so the actors could actually act against each other. Like, watch the documentary if you haven't seen it. The Director and the Jedi. It's on the Blu-ray. It's one of the best making of documentaries because it has actual themes. It has the conflict between Mark Hamill and Rian Johnson. It's absolutely brilliant. I love this movie. It's not my number one. The only reason it's not my number one, it's because it is reusing. It is to some extent reusing story structures from Empire and Return of the Jedi.
It is,
and that's my only, like, the tiniest little nitpick that I have, and it's the reason why it's not my number one. But I absolutely adore this film.
In terms of, like, me kind of, like, removing all the context from all these movies, which, as I've said, is impossible to do, but, like, trying to assess it on its own terms as a standalone movie, I think this might be, like, the best movie. Maybe. Yeah. It might be one or two, I think. Yeah. I love it. I think it's great.
Fantastic.
Okay. So, we are down to our overall top three, and if you want, I've already done the math. So, we've talked about all the other movies. What's left is my number one and Josh's number one, which is Empire, and Grizz's number one, which is Return of the Jedi. Shall we talk about the movies and then do the list, or do you want to see the list and we can talk about both the movies?
While I'm talking about Return of the Jedi, why don't you type up the list in the document so that I can copy and paste it into the video?
Cool.
I already have, but sure. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, in such a way that I can copy and paste it. So just number it, and I'll put it in there.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So,
Go ahead.
Return of the Jedi is my number one. In terms of original trilogy, people would say that's probably a little bit of a hot take
That's a very hot take.
because Empire is so good, and you're not going to get an argument from me. I absolutely love Empire Strikes Back. So, but the reason Return of the Jedi is my number one is possibly a large part of its nostalgia. As a kid, Return of the Jedi was always my favorite because of the space battle at the end of the movie. And I mean that's one of the things I like best about Star Wars. I should say the two things I like best about Star Wars, as I said before, lightsaber duels and space battles. And Return of the Jedi has the best of both for me. I think that the space battle, around Death Star 2 is awesome. They show up, it's a trap. All that is really cool. In comparison to the Death Star trench, which it's much less simplistic. The way they get into the Death Star, and is much more impressive visually. But then the lightsaber duels, I think that the lightsaber duel between Luke and Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, with John Williams' incredible score behind it, is just so powerful, and it continues to resonate with me. Every time I think about it, I get like this feeling in my chest, like, oh man, the humming sound from the singers. Go ahead, Josh.
Me and my brother, when we were growing up, I had a red lightsaber, he had a green one, and this was our most reenacted lightsaber fight, was this one, for sure. We reenacted this one the most.
And this is another example of a point where Luke was not perfect, because Luke lets his anger take over and starts wailing on Vader.
Just what the Emperor wants.
And
yeah.
it's and I just love it so much. And then Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor,
having a blast.
I honestly, even as a kid, I could not have fathomed that there would be a more villainous character than Darth Vader. And then they did it. The Emperor is terrifying and twisted and malicious, and there's just so much to it.
And I don't want to... giving Vader a redemption arc was a stroke of genius.
Yes.
It really, really is. And we're so used to that idea now that it's easy to overlook that as a storytelling decision. Absolutely genius, because it's extremely cathartic, I think. And it retroactively adds pathos to his character that would not have been there otherwise. It makes him more interesting in A New Hope and Empire, knowing this is where he's headed.
100%.
And I think that, to your point, Grizz, that only works because you introduce a new big bad, a bigger bad, and I think that really works too. And the Vader stuff at the end of Jedi, I think, is just really, honestly, genius stuff.
And can we talk about John Williams doing the Imperial March on piano as Darth Vader is dying?
Yes.
He's turned to
maybe my favorite moment of music in Star Wars. Yeah.
God, so good.
Come on, that is such a stroke of genius.
I know we said it a lot, but Star Wars loses 90% of its greatness if John Williams doesn't do the music.
I agree. Yeah.
But
Grizz, so sorry, go ahead. You're still talking about it.
Well, I was about to get on to what I think is most people's gripes about Return of the Jedi and for why they don't bother me.
Can I get a couple gripes, and then you can address my gripes? I think that in that last act, I'm incredibly invested in all the Luke, Vader, Emperor stuff. I'm less invested in Endor, and I'm less invested in the space battle. I kind of, Han Solo has nothing to do in this movie. That's kind of another complaint, is he doesn't have, I don't know, he doesn't really do much. Or he does stuff, but his character. Yeah, there's not really an arc for Han Solo, and so consequently, I kind of, in the last act, I'm really only concerned about Luke, Vader, and Emperor, and the other stuff. I'm okay, cool, yeah, they blew up the Death Star again, cool, all right, they got the shield down, cool, but any response, Grizz?
So, as far as Endor, I can understand that gripe that Han doesn't really have a purpose. Oh, I'm not a purpose. What's the word you used?
Arc.
An arc.
Han doesn't have much of an arc. Yeah.
I think
role.
We got most of Han's arc in Empire, right?
Absolutely.
So,
and it's amazing, but
this is one of those things that maybe it doesn't bother me because, like Hugo, I, have only ever enjoyed the trilogies as trilogies. So, for me, it's I don't miss Han's arc because I got Han's arc in Empire. But for Return of the Jedi, it's not that he's not doing anything. Obviously, they get him out of the carbonite, and Harrison Ford gets to do some really fun scenes while he's blind, and then the whole
Jedi Knight.
I've been gone for a little while, and everybody has delusions of grandeur.
I love that line so much.
The best line in the movie by Han Solo, by the way, is I grew up here, you know. You're gonna die here. What a line. Yeah.
So
great stuff.
Yeah, so I think that Han Solo's character is still really fun in this movie. And
yeah, I agree.
The fight at Jabba's sail barge is just fun swashbuckling action.
I love the whole 20-30 minute Jabba sequence. I love it so much. It doesn't make any sense. Their plan makes no sense at all.
Yeah,
and like if the nitpicky jerks who nitpick everything Last Jedi were around in 1983, I'm sure they would have done the same thing. I don't care at all. I could not care less that it doesn't make sense. I love every second of everything with the Jabba.
Yeah, it's just
I love it.
Like I said, it's the swashbuckling part of that sequence that I just love. It's like a pirate adventure. They're R2 launching the lightsaber in the air and then catching it, and why didn't someone shoot him before he caught it? I mean, I get the complaints, but it's just so much fun. And on Endor, I'm also having fun with the Ewoks. I know.
Me too.
A lot of the older Star Wars fans.
I'm not an Ewok hater.
A lot of the older Star Wars fans at that time were unhappy about the Ewoks. They thought they were lame, or this is for children. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I love the Ewoks, by the way.
Yeah, they're fun.
To put it on the record.
I come up with reasons for why the Ewoks can take on stormtroopers, and I don't know if it actually makes sense,
matter.
But I kind of love that. We've seen that the stormtroopers' armors don't really do that much protecting in the first place. So
it's a primitive technology against an advanced technology kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's a tale as old as time, and he's just kind of playing with that,
Yeah, and if you believe that, sorry for the interruption, but if you believe that George Lucas, as he has said, was commenting on kind of America's history and
Vietnam.
the wars that America had been in, it is pretty much a parallel of Vietnam, where a population with a much lower level of technology is able to withstand a larger force that has all this technology and these incredible weapons.
And I like to think it's because
of course
there's
it's
no
a
way
bit
they've ever
silly,
been trained
but
for that. The stormtroopers, there's no way that they would ever expect that something like this would even happen. So how would they know how to react to it? Their helmets are designed to marginally deflect blaster bolts. Maybe the
what
physical...
are they designed for? I think
that's
they're
what I'm
only
saying.
designed for them to look like the Ku Klux Klan, really.
And I think that's
the
I
only
really think
reason,
that's what it comes down to. But
Yeah.
if you want to argue that their usual enemies are firing blaster bolts at them, maybe the fact that these are physical weapons doing bludgeoning damage to them, that maybe they're not designed to fight that off. So that's what I'm saying. I can justify everything that's happening on Endor, and so when you combine that with the fact that when I first watched it, I was a kid, and I loved the Ewoks, and then on top of that, knowing what you know about me as a movie fan, I love movies that have happy endings, and Return of the Jedi has the happiest one of all, especially when they add in the Ewok song.
I love that song,
I
dude.
love it so much.
The Yub Nub song.
It honestly puts
Yub
me,
Nub.
puts me in a,
So good.
puts me in a great mood, puts a smile on my face. I just rewatched it this week, and it's hard to beat that final song, and I really don't want to see Hayden Christensen as a Force Ghost, but
And
I'm
fine with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
this
I think
this is
one
where
of the
we should talk about the fact that this movie is kind of the one that got the worst special edition treatment, in my opinion, because the Jedi Rocks song with the CGI dude singing this weird jazz song and Hayden Christensen at the end and Darth Vader saying no, it's kind of a little bit over the top, but I don't think it detracts from the movie in any significant way.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
No, in the special edition, they added Darth Vader screaming "no" before he threw the Emperor off.
He's like, no.
So hold on, there's three. So there's the theatrical version, there's a special edition, and then there's another version beyond the special edition that adds Hayden Christensen, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Because he was clear. Obviously, Hayden Christensen was not in the special edition 1997 re-release because he hadn't
been cast yet.
He would have been 15.
Was the no in the 1997 special edition, or was that a throwback to Revenge of the Sith?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't remember
that
at this point.
I think in 97 they only added the song, which
I don't mind at all.
I like the song.
I like that song.
do.
It's good. I was 7. I thought it was cool.
We're talking about the one that Cy Snoodle sings, right?
The guy with the big mouth. I don't know what he's called.
Oh, the big mouth guy. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that guy.
Right before the girl goes down to the Rancor pit, the song right before.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, and I can't believe I almost forgot to talk about the
bad.
Rancor. How cool is the Rancor? Who doesn't love a giant monster?
Rancor's great. The Rancor's great.
Return of the Jedi is fun. It is all the fun of Star Wars. Is in Return of the Jedi.
I think that I agree with you that it's higher on my list because I saw it as a kid and I loved it as a kid, and it's impossible to divorce the personal context from, assessing it as a movie. It's my number 5. I think Rogue One's a better movie, I guess, but the fact that there's a nostalgia aspect, the fact that it's part of the Skywalker saga, that gives it points. Also, as we've said, it ends it in such a cathartic way. This sticks the landing better than I think Rise of Skywalker did. Revenge of the Sith might stick the landing better than Return of the Jedi, maybe. I don't really know though. The Darth Vader redemptive arc is, again, it's hard to overstate how much I think that's a great character choice and a great narrative choice. And I really enjoy this a lot. It's not my number 1 because I think you're crazy for putting Empire behind this, but I get how you particularly would like this.
Well, and it's again, the difference between Empire and Return of the Jedi is negligible for me, and same with New Hope. So, I hope people will recognize that it really, for me, it just comes down to how much more fun I have with Return of the Jedi.
Sure.
That's fair.
Hugo, what do you got on Return of the Jedi before we get to Empire?
Yeah, Return of the Jedi is awesome. It is probably the most fun of the original trilogy. It's my number 4. I think all my number 1, 2, and 3 are Empire, Last Jedi, and A New Hope. Those are the 3 movies that I really consider to be, even regardless of my Star Wars fandom, I think those are the 3 movies that are absolutely excellent films on their own. Return of the Jedi, I think, has some minor issues with pacing. I think the second act kind of takes a while, and then you get to the final confrontation. I think the 3 planes of action sometimes kind of don't help each other. They're edited together, but they don't really have once they open the shield, I think the ground battle doesn't have as much of an effect on what's going on in the air, so there's no tension between them, so I don't think they fit together. But they are such small complaints for a movie that I absolutely love. Luke in this is the reason why Luke was my favorite character growing up, and still is, even before The Last Jedi, which I've already talked about. And the whole confrontation in the throne room, not even just in the throne room, even when he gives himself to the Empire, and he has that little conversation with Vader, and you can already see the cracks in Vader. He's already, it's too late for me, son. He calls him son, which is something that he wouldn't do in the other movies. And he ignites the lightsaber, and he's like, I see you've constructed your own lightsaber. And I love all of that stuff. And then the throne room scene is one of the best, final confrontation in confrontations in Star Wars, probably the best. Everything Ian McDiarmid does in this movie is excellent, but I love him in all of this. But this is obviously the one. I think this is his best performance. I don't know. It's brilliant. It's great. It's a conclusion that is hard to come by. It's rare for the final installment in a series of any kind. Of course, the series then went on, but it didn't happen for 16 years. So at the time, this was a conclusion, and it's rare for a conclusion to hit so well. Even if I don't think it's as good a movie as the first 2, for the minor complaints that I had, it's still excellent. It's incredibly fun, and I love it.
Okay,
so, yeah,
cool.
Let's talk about y'all's number 1.
Our number 1 is, I guess we are a basic. We have the basic Star Wars take that The Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie. But I think there's a reason why that's the most kind of commonly held take. because this movie is the perfect sequel. It improves on everything from the original. It deepens the lore. It deepens the characters. It's better shot because Ivan Kushner doesn't get enough credit for being a really good director. The editing is immaculate. Every scene with Yoda is so interesting, and it makes you think about the concepts that they are juggling in this series that are introduced here, because they weren't. This idea of balance in the way that it's described in this movie wasn't really introduced in the first one, and you get the surreal scene in the cave. You get the iconic scene where Yoda pulls out the X-wing from the water. It's everything about this is perfect, and I think all of the Star Wars movies that came after this were chasing this film. This one, at least in terms of the depth and just the overall level of quality of everything that it tries to do, that it's able to achieve. And even The Last Jedi, which, if I judge it just at which is the movie that means the most to me emotionally, that might be my favorite. But it still has to deal with with kind of what Empire was able to do. It still has to acknowledge the existence of Empire with its structure, because you can't avoid it. It's just incredible. One of the best movies ever made for me.
I agree. I think that it's to your point, Hugo. It's better storytelling than A New Hope. I think A New Hope, as we've kind of discussed, drags a little bit in the beginning, maybe a little in the middle as well. I don't think Empire drags at all, and I think that it has the best battle sequence in the original trilogy, which is the Hoth sequence. I don't think anything in Return of the Jedi is as good as Hoth. Yep. And it also has, I think, for my money, the best lightsaber fight in any Star Wars movie, which is Luke and Vader. Just because, I'm not the first person to say this, but lightsaber fights are most effective when they are externalizing the relationship between the two characters that are fighting. And
when there's a strong emotional stake in it.
Yes, and there is so much going on between Luke and Vader in that lightsaber fight in Empire. And even before you learn the twist. So before you learn the twist, what's going on is Luke is avenging his father, who he believes was killed by this guy. And that's been his whole purpose for the first two movies was, I want to, learn the ways of the Force, become a Jedi like my father. That's what he says in New Hope. And he is on his way to doing that. He's not quite there yet. He's been told he's not quite there yet, but he can't wait. So he takes this guy on. He's not ready, and Vader's kind of like toying with him. And Luke he thinks this guy's killed his father, and he also watched him kill his mentor.
Yep.
So he has lots of reasons to hate this guy and want to bring this guy down. And then you learn the twist, and then there's even more of an emotional connection between them, and you kind of learn why Vader is toying with him. And then it's just great. And, like I said, I think that this has, like, the best Star Wars stuff, and it has, like, the best battle with Hoth and the best lightsaber battle between these two, but it also has the best emotional connections between the characters of any Star Wars movie. And that is Han and Leia and Luke and Vader, I think, are the two compelling emotional relationships. I kind of just covered Luke and Vader and how how that works, but Han and Leia, compare them falling in love in this movie to Padme and Anakin falling in love in Attack of the Clones.
Right?
It's
what
ridiculous.
happened?
It's night and day. Well, as I said about Attack of the Clones, that has a lot of story to cover. They're seeing each other for the first time in 10 years, and the end point is they get married. In this movie, the beginning is a glance. Their relationship begins with a glance, and like how much plays out in glances is really remarkable. I think, particularly between Han and Leia. And the end point is the cathartic kiss and "I love you, I know." Wow, like I
what a line!
It's honestly one of like the best like. I'm not gonna say it's one of the best love stories in movies, but like in like a science fiction action movie, like
exactly.
I'd be hard pressed to find a better, more compelling like romantic arc
I can't
than
think
these
of
two.
one in action adventure.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I do want to ask. This movie was made a long time ago, 40 years ago, in fact.
41.
41.
Well, no, 48.
No, 40? 40?
42 if you think about production.
Okay. Point is, very long time ago. Han comes off, the older I get, Han comes off a little skeezy in some of the scenes. What do you guys think about that?
I think the reason why it doesn't bother me is these people have had a relation. In the first movie, there was already a hint of, oh, these guys, they're kind of flirty about each other. Like, there's that scene where Leia kind of says, oh, this guy, oh, he's such an annoying, he doesn't care about anything. But then Han does something cool, and she's like, oh, you know what, this guy's kind of interesting. And he's like, oh, this really annoying princess, I don't know if to kill her or to fall in love with her. It is kind of set up, and if you think, considering there's a time skip between the first two movies, it's like a few years
exactly.
where they have a relationship.
They have some more relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they are kind of bickering at the beginning, because he's like, oh, you actually don't want me to leave because the way you feel about me, and she doesn't want to admit it, but she knows that she feels that way. So it's like he is coming on a little strong.
It's a little pressury is all that bothers me. It's like, he kind of corners her.
He is coming on a little strong, but it's like something.
Yes. I'm looking through it in a from today's.
First of all, it's a 2020 lens, but also it's you. If you look at if this was the first time they met, it's one thing. They've known each other for years at this point, and yes, the sexual politics aren't as advanced as they would be today. The scene probably wouldn't be the same if it was done today, but
I don't know that it would be that different, though. I think you're right that it's earned enough that they don't need to change it.
It would have been.
I
think there would have been a slight difference, just a slight difference. But I think it works, and overall, like, you can tell they care about each other from the first moment the movie begins. Like when Leia looks behind. From seriously,
a lot of glances. There's a lot of glances.
At the beginning, yeah. So I think
they work. The glances work for me.
Oh yeah.
To your point, Grizz,
also, I think that.
I think that Hugo's right that there's a lot of unseen stuff between them.
Yeah.
That is kind of a personal history that we don't necessarily are not privy to, but is kind of communicated by glances.
Yeah, we don't have to. We don't have to have seen it.
Right. And the fact that she does chase him down to try to stop him from leaving also I think is indicative of her feelings, whether or not she wants to admit that or not.
Right.
And I think that he is a little presumptive, and maybe I'm being colored by the fact that I know that they are in love with each other, that I'm saying it's kind of okay what he does because it works out okay. And but I also I see your point, but I guess it doesn't bother me. Is my ultimate
and that's
point.
fine.
It's not like this isn't like Blade Runner. There's a scene in Blade Runner that's kind of the same ballpark, but way worse.
Way worse. Messed up.
Yeah. And this isn't that, and so I think it's okay.
I mean, in general, I agree. I just wanted to see what you guys thought about that, because that's something that I always, when I get to that scene, I'm always like, Han, maybe rein it in a little bit, buddy.
He doesn't corner her until they're on the Falcon later.
Right.
If he doesn't they have several extended conversations about he even mentions she wants to kiss him, and she's like, I'd sooner kiss a Wookiee.
I can arrange that.
That can be arranged. Yeah. I think there's been enough flirtation.
I've heard her.
There's been
scruffy looking.
And she challenges him by kissing Luke in front of him. There's been a lot of flirtation and aggressive flirtation between them before he ever corners her. That it feels and also the way she responds to him cornering her, I think is indicative that kind of makes it a little okay. She doesn't I don't know. I see your point though. But I think that I think the love story works really well.
Overall, I think Leia is a pretty empowered character, considering the time in which these movies were made.
Also, to again compare Han and Leia to Padme and Anakin in Attack of the Clones, Padme and Anakin's love story plays out entirely in dialogue, a sequence of dialogue scenes, and the dialogue's not very good, which doesn't help. I think that
they also fall off of a hippo creature.
That's true. I think that Han and Leia, it's played out more in action. When they go to when they land and there's bats around the Millennium Falcon, turns out they're inside a worm or something like that.
Yeah, space slug.
Right, exactly. But the ground shakes, and Han's first reaction is to grab Leia and make sure she's okay. That is it's indicating their relationship through the action that the character is going through, and that's again a lot better storytelling than the prequels, to keep harking on that point.
Not hard to do.
Yeah, but to talk about the movie in general, I think that, like you said, Hugo, it had an impossible task of following Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it is significantly better than Star Wars, I think. In every way you can measure the reasons that Star Wars is good, I think Empire is better for every conceivable way.
Other than introducing the really complex world.
But also, this introduces Yoda.
Oh,
It introduces Lando. It introduces Lando Calrissian.
Yep.
It introduces
Force powers.
I guess Force ghosts aren't until
powers.
Return of the Jedi.
No,
a lot of Force powers.
Ghosts, Obi-Wan
You see
shows up
Force
as Force
Ghost
Ghost in Empire.
He does.
Yeah, at
You're
the
right. He
beginning,
does.
in
That's
Hoth.
right. He does. Yes, he does. Okay. And then I think that, like, in terms of like storytelling, the betrayal of Lando of Han and Leia is interesting and tragic, and he redeems himself slightly, but like that's like a good twist when Vader just shows up in Cloud City. That's cool and
And
surprising.
Han shoots him right away.
Yes,
Han-
God,
he
that's
just-
so cool.
oh,
That was such a
come
big
on.
surprise moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're not even getting into the biggest twist in movie history, which is, again, we're so used to at this point
take
that
it
it's
for
hard
granted.
to like. It's hard to like. Yeah, we take it for granted. But biggest twist in movie history. So this movie gets a lot of credit for that. Real quick anecdote: my cousin, who's like my age, so she's like 30, 31. She was watching the Star Wars movies with her boyfriend for the first time, and she was like telling me about it, and she's like, "Yeah, I couldn't believe that Vader was Luke's father." I'm like, how did you not know that?
How have you
How did you
escaped
not
that?
know that? Yes.
That's one of the things that I most wish I could do is go back and re-experience. Well, especially since, like, I said I don't remember a time before having seen these movies. I don't remember the first time I heard that
neither.
Vader was Luke's
No,
father.
I'm your father. Yeah.
I wish I could experience that for the first time again.
Like, to the point that I will occasionally look up videos of parents showing their kids this scene the first time to live
Yes.
vicariously through them. Like, and it's amazing every time. And I have the three, like, dun 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 dun, that music cue that happens right before, and it's
It can't be
just
true.
incredible.
That's impossible.
Well, and
No,
Can't
it's
be
not
true.
That's impossible.
and my favorite anecdote that that most Star Wars fans are aware of, but if you're not a super Star Wars fan,
Yeah.
maybe you don't. That for the script, the only people who knew that Vader was Luke's father was James Earl Jones
Yep.
and George Lucas.
Yep.
Right. Yes.
That's incredible. How did you
Yeah,
keep that from
and-
the entire crew?
And even David Prowse, who's the unfortunately passed
David
away, I think
Prowse.
this year
He
or
did
last
pass
year.
away. Yeah.
And he's the stunt performer, I suppose you would call him, that does Darth Vader. But
He's
I
the guy
think
in the suit.
He's the body.
Yeah, he's the guy in the suit. But like, I feel like a lot of Vader's performance is physical, and he does bring a lot to it. Even that, he said something else. Like, the line that was used during the filming was different because it was going to be dubbed over. And George went to Luke and said, "Oh, you have to react knowing what the actual twist is. So be over the top, because what he's saying is not actually what is going to be in the movie." And I think Mark Hamill gets some kind of criticism for this scene, but
No, I think it's great.
I
think it's
love
perfect.
it. I love
Yeah.
how
do
absolutely
love it.
desperate he is, because like that's literally the worst thing he could ever tell
Absolute
him.
worst thing you could ever hear. Yeah.
And I think the reaction is appropriate.
Well, and
So yeah,
there's something to be said. Like, people often refer to like overacting in the Star Wars movies, but
yeah,
for me, that's actually one of the things that I enjoy. Is it makes it impersonatable. One
Yeah.
part of the fun of quoting that line.
impossible.
No, it's not true.
true.
is getting really into
It's
the
so good.
impersonation, and you can only do that
Yeah.
with the over the top performances, and so I love it. I do. I really love that.
Yep.
So, do we want to?
And Leia,
we got anything else
Leia
to say on
getting force
Empire?
powers at the end. The way he calls out to Leia to come save
Yes.
him. I think that's
Yeah.
great. That's like really, really good stuff.
And also, like, the scene, I think one of my favorite scenes of this movie is when Luke is about to leave, and Obi-Wan appears to Yoda and says, "Oh, the boy was our lost hope," and Yoda's like, "No."
and like the
There
red
is
lighting
another.
on him as the
And the
X-Wing
lighting
takes off.
changes;
Yeah.
it goes
Yeah,
from blue to
so
red.
good.
Ah, that's cinematic perfection for me.
Speaking of retcons that that Hugo would not like, how do you not get upset by the fact that Obi-Wan says he was our last hope, but Obi-Wan knows fully well that Princess Leia is is another Skywalker.
Maybe Obi-Wan is a bit sexist. I don't know. It doesn't change the movie for me, honestly. Like, Luke has shown force powers, has shown an instinct for having force powers, and Obi-Wan has been with Luke his whole life, so he believes that. I don't know.
What if the next line after the camera cuts away? No, there's another. Then Obi-Wan's like, "You mean the girl? Seriously?"
Okay, I think that's.
Yeah, thank God they cut the audio on that one.
Yeah. Oh my God. Kirshner was like, "Obi-Wan, you can't say that. What's happening? This is not in the script. Come on." Okay, no, Obi-Wan isn't sexist. He just didn't know.
He forgot. He's an old man and a ghost.
Yeah, and a ghost. More powerful than you could ever imagine. Okay, I think we've Star Wars. So I'll just to end this, I'll reveal I've done all the very simple math that
it's
I had
on the
to
screen.
do to
Go ahead.
Tally up all the stuff. So we'll read the list, which is at number 11, Attack of the Clones. Number 10, The Phantom Menace, unsurprisingly, I suppose. Number 9, we have Solo. Number 8, Revenge of the Sith. Number 7, The Rise of Skywalker. Number 6, Rogue One, which I suppose is kind of a hot take for the list overall.
It's my number 6.
Number 5, The Force Awakens. Number 4, The Last Jedi. Severely underrated, I suppose, but whatever. Number 3, Return of the Jedi. I'm joking. Number 2, Star Wars, A New Hope, or whatever you want to call it. Number 1, unsurprisingly, The Empire Strikes Back. So, guys, we've done it. How do you feel about our list?
I don't hate it. I think that everything in our list is within 2 spots of where it is on my list. So
I'm kind of going through it now to check against mine to see.
Checking the math.
Yeah, my Rise of Skywalker is obviously 2 spots higher.
Yep.
So Rogue One, we differ pretty greatly from my overall opinion on. But other than that, everything is within 2 spots, of my list.
Yeah,
I'm not unhappy about this list.
I think I have Revenge of the Sith a bit higher, I have Rogue One lower, and I have Last Jedi higher. But overall, I think the overall ranking tells us that, it's original trilogy, sequel trilogy, and then the prequels, which I think we can all agree on, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, in general, for me, that would be the case, yeah. I mean, I say in general. It definitely is based on my rankings.
I love all 3 OGs. I love 2 of the 3 sequel trilogy movies, and I love 1 of the 3 prequel movies. So
prequels, yeah.
Makes sense.
So it makes sense. Okay, guys, cool. Thanks for listening this far. We've done it. We've done the Star Wars.
Let the record show that the 3 of us recorded these 2 Star Wars episodes back to back, so we've been at this for like 4 hours. So good on us.
What a great day!
And awesome. Like, I wouldn't want to spend them any other way. Talking about Star Wars, that's amazing. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, give us a review, share your opinions, tweet at us. Next week. Oh, right. Next week. What are we doing next week? Next week, we are going to be talking about one of the most exciting directors working right now, which is Denis Villeneuve. He'll be releasing Dune this year. And we'll do like a sort of a little career retrospective. But the film to remember will be in INCENDIES, I think the pronunciation is, but don't quote me on that.
Or if you're a dumb American like me, it's INCENDIES.
INCENDIES. Yeah. Which 2010 movie was nominated for Best Foreign Film because it's in French. It's he's French-Canadian, so it's one of the movies that he made before his career took him to the United States. So yeah, that's an exciting episode. Again, thank you for listening. Tweet at us, Hugo_Pinay. Let me know how you feel about The Last Jedi and why Rogue One is the best movie Disney has made, and I will debate you on it. And follow us at RTF_pod on Twitter. And leave us a comment, like, subscribe, and see you next week. Bye, everyone.